Alrighty, so today I'm going to be showing how to create a review component in React JavaScript. This will allow the user to leave a star rating, write the text review, and submit it, and have that review be displayed right below the component, as well as any other additional reviews, and alongside with some really cool CSS styling as well, with the stars in particular, which I will show later on. So let's just jump right into it. So the first thing that we're gonna want to do is we're going to want to import useState. We're going to be utilizing that rather heavily. So let me import that real quick. And I'm also, as I mentioned, I'm going to be using CSS, and so I'm just going to be using app.jsx and app.css for this particular example. But if you're making your own app, make sure to have your own separate folder, like review component.jsx and review component.css, that sort of thing. But this is just a basic example, so I'm going to be just importing app.css as well. Okay, so these are the only imports that we're going to need for this particular component. The next thing that I like to do is I like to create my useState variables. And we're going to be creating quite a bit of these. The first one is going to be our review state variable. Let me just write that out. The initial value will be an empty string, right? Because once the user loads onto the page, nothing is typed into the review box yet. It's just empty. The next useState variable that we're going to make is the star rating. This is the rating that the user is going to select from the stars that we will be displaying. The initial value will be, for this, it will be 0, because the user, once the page loads initially, the user hasn't selected anything yet, which means that no value has been set yet. So we're going to do 0 for the default value. The next value that we're going to use is the star hover state variable, and I'll explain this in just a second. Let me just type this out. The initial value will be 0 as well. So the state hover is going to be I'm not state hover, star hover, excuse me. What this is going to be is when the user hovers over the star, it's going to change from a gray color to a gold color. If the user selects on, what we also want to do is if the user, for instance, hovers over let's say the third star, if there's 5 stars, they hover over the third one, we want stars 1 through 3 to light up as well, to signify that they are selecting a 3-star rating, right? So we want 3 stars to show up. And so that's going to come in handy for that specific purpose. And the last state variable that we're going to make is called reviews, plural. And this will be initial value an empty array. So what this is going to be is just going to be containing all of the reviews. It's going to contain the text, and as well as the numerical value from the star rating that they select by clicking on the star. Okay, so I like that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my, let's see, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up multiple functions here. I think that I like that idea. So the first function that I'm going to set up is I'm not going to actually type anything inside the function body. I'm just going to have the foundational code set up for our functions. So, and I'll explain which each one means as I'm typing them out. So the first function is going to be handle review change. It's going to be a simple arrow function. What this is going to do, it's going to take an event, right? So we get to insert an event in here. It's going to receive an event that is going to contain information from the text field that the user is typing in. And it's going to be setting that information inside the text field, and it's going to be setting that as the value for our review state variable. Okay, and I will type that out in just a second. I think it'll make more sense if I do this a little bit later, and you'll see what I mean. But for now, I'm just going to type out all of our functions. The next function is going to be handle star rating. It's going to be taking in an argument called rating. And what this is going to be doing is it's going to be handling it's going to be doing something similar. It's going to be just updating our star rating value. When the user clicks on the star rating, it's going to change this star rating value to whichever value that they selected, whichever star they chose. The next function is going to be handle star hover. And we'll call this argument that it's going to receive called hover. This is going to be doing something similar again, except instead of updating the value from the user clicking on the stars, it's going to be updating the hover value, the star hover value, based off of what star the user is hovering over. Okay, the next function is going to be handle mouse leave. This is going to be the function that's going to, when the user moves the cursor away from the stars, the stars that were once gold as a result of the user hovering over them will turn back to gray as a result of the user leaving the cursor or moving the cursor away from the stars. The next function, and we're almost done with these functions, is going to be called, oops, forgot to do, there we go, the const. The next one's going to be const handle review submit. This won't be taking in an argument. But what this is going to be our most complex function. And I will fill these out in just a moment. I just want to, I feel like it would make more sense if I type the JSX code and then come back to these functions and fill them out afterwards, and you'll see why. But for this last function, handle review submit, this is going to be our most complex one. It's basically just going to involve handling the part of the process in which the user types in something into the text field, they select a star rating, and then they click the submit button, and those values, the rating and the text, will be stored inside of an object that will contain those two values, and we'll be storing those values as objects inside of our reviews array. All right, and now it's a little confusing, but just bear with me. I will show you what I mean. So now let's go to our JSX code real quick. So I'm going to give this div a class name. We're going to call this our reviews container. Next, what I'm going to do, let's do review container instead. What I'm going to do now is going to create an h3 tag. This will be our title. It's just going to say leave a review. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is, let me just see why that's not showing up real quick. Sorry about that. It was just a silly little error where I had to delete index.css from my main.jsx file within StackBlitz. If you're doing this in React, you don't have to worry about it. but it's just silly little error. And moving on from that. So what I'm going to do now is we got our title text showing up. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to create our stars. We're going to put them right below our title. And I'll just create some comment here just to make it look a little bit organized. And then what I'm going to do now is going to create the div for these stars. And we're going to call this stars container. Give this div a class name. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an array that is going to contain 5 undefined elements. And it's going to contain, 5 undefined elements. And the purpose for that is because we want to create an array for the sole purpose of creating or looping through the indices of those undefined elements. In other words, we're not interested in the value of the elements. We're interested in the index associated with each undefined element. And I'll show you why we're interested in that. But first, let's create that array. So we're going to say, I'm going to create JSX code, curly brackets into square brackets, and it's going to be the spread operator array. It's going to contain 5 elements. And we're going to use the map function. So we're going to just have an underscore for each element, and the index associated with each element we're just going to be calling index. And then we're going to do an arrow function, another set of parentheses, and we're going to create a span tag. Okay, and then inside of this span tag here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter multiple times right after the N, and I'm going to insert some properties into the span tag. First of which is the key, and for each key is going to be the index. React always wants you to have a key whenever you are using arrays. And okay, so this next part's a little bit confusing. So we're going to have another class name. And this class name is going to be inside curly brackets. And we're going to be using template literals. So you want to press the tilde key, the button that's right to the left of the 1. And the reason for this is because we want to use a template literal because we want to combine certain strings based off of certain conditions. So the first string that we want, no matter what, is going to be called star, right? So we're calling each index that's going to be representing each star, if that makes sense. And the variables, the JavaScript variables that we're going to be using here is we're going to be using the index. So you want to do the $, curly brackets, less than, and I'll explain this, parentheses, star hover, and then the OR operator, star rating, and then right after the parentheses, you're going to do a question mark. And then you want to do selected, and then colon, empty string. There we go. So basically what this is saying is, and make sure selected is in quotations as well, but what this is doing is it's saying, okay, for each index that's going to represent each individual star, we want to name that star as a class name. And then inside this condition we're saying index is less than star hover or star rating. So whichever star the user is hovering over, or whichever one they click on, we want each star that's coming before which star the user has either hovered or clicked on to light up as well. So if they click on the third star, or if they hover over the third star, we want the 2 stars preceding that third star to light up gold as well as the third star itself. So this is where the index comes in, right? If the user hovers over the third star, the index, there's going to be 2 stars that precede it. So index will be coming into play as a result of that. And if the user isn't hovering over any stars at all, then we won't add in another string. And so in other words, this condition, index is always going to, as long as the user is hovering over a star or they click on any star at all, then this particular string will be added on at least to 1 star, no matter what. So, and that's a little bit confusing, and that might take you some time to mull over yourself. But this is probably like the most confusing part of the entire component, in my opinion. But let's move on to the next part. So we're going to have an on-click event handler. This is going to contain curly brackets, anonymous function. And I'm going to be calling our handle star rating and passing in index plus 1. So this is just going to be containing the event handler, right? When they click on a star, we want to send over the index value plus 1. The reason for that is because we don't want, if the user clicks on the third star, we don't want to send over a value of 2. We want the numerical value 3, which is why we need to add 1 to the index. And next thing I'm going to do is going to do on mouse over. It's going to be something similar. Curly brackets, anonymous function. We're going to be calling handle mouse star hover, and passing in something similar. Index plus 1. So this is just the same for the click, except this is, instead of clicking, this is the hovering part of the stars. And we're going to have one more on mouse leave. This is just going to be simply directly calling the handle mouse leave function without passing in any value. So we can just put that in curly brackets. And what this is going to be doing, as I mentioned earlier, it's just going to be turning all the stars from gold to gray, whichever stars were gold, that is, once the user hovers away from the stars. And so let's actually get the stars to show up. So I should have probably done that earlier, but it's fine. Inside of the span tag, I'm going to go to, we're going to be going to Google. We're just going to type in star, we'll just type in star. Oh wait, no, star character, I'm sorry. Here we go. I'm just going to take the first one, we'll take the black star, and I'm actually going to paste this down below because I'm going to be using this multiple times. I'm going to be commenting this out. And great, so now we can just continuously use that, and inside the span tag, we're going to be pasting in that star. And there we go, we got the stars to show up. They aren't colored yet, they aren't stylized yet, but let's go ahead and actually do that now. So I can show you. Oh, first thing first, I'm sorry. we need to go back to our functions that we called here inside of our span tag. So first thing we're going to be doing, handle star rating. So this is going to be taking in an event. The rating, we'll just call this argument rating. We already did that. And it's going to be calling upon our state updater function, our set star rating updater function. And we're going to be passing in the value of rating. And for the next, we're going to be mouse over, so then handle star hover, something similar, set star hover. We're going to be passing in hover. Perfect. And then the next one, handle mouse leave. Okay, so what this is going to be doing, it's just going to be setting set star hover to a value of 0, because we don't want any stars to be lit up when the user hovers away from the stars. Okay. And then what we're going to do is go into our CSS so we can actually get the stars to show up the way we want them to. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is going to target our star class, and we're going to make the color of each star gray. Okay. Let me just make sure I have I need to pass in my CSS file real quick. So let me just do that. There we go. So all of our stars turn gray. That's perfect. Next thing that I'm going to do to this is I'm going to make these stars a little bit bigger. So let's say, this is technically a font, the stars. So we're going to use font size to increase their size. Let's say 1.5 REN. That should be good. That looks good. Okay, so now we have our stars to show up. And a little bit bigger. The next class that we're going to want to target, so remember, if we go back to our class name, these are going to be targeting the star plus the selected string to light up certain stars based off of what the user has either clicked on or is hovering over. So we're going to say stars selected as our class. I'm going to make this color gold. So if I hover over the stars, just like that, they should turn gold. If I hover the second, 2 stars will be gold. And you can just see if I hover away, they'll go back to being gray. So that's pretty cool. The next bit that we're going to want to do is we're going to be targeting star hover class. This is simply for the sake of changing the cursor value to a pointer to make it appear like they're clicking on a button. And I think that's it for the stars. Yeah, I think that's just what we wanted for the stars. If I click on a star, if I click on 3, as you can see, 3 will light up. If I click on them again, click on a different value, it'll change. So that's perfect. And I can't hover. Okay, yeah. That's because I left the browser. That's fine. But it's working exactly as we wanted it to. So now that we've completed the stars, let's move on to the next section, which is the text field. So it's going to look a little messy initially, but we will fix it within CSS. So we're going to use a text area tags here, because text area allows the user to change the size of the text field, which I personally like for this particular component. So let's create some text here, and we're just gonna comment that out. There we go. So we're gonna say text area. Now this is actually going to be a self-closing tag, And the reason for this is because we don't need any built-in text to the text field. We just want to target its properties. That's why this is a self-closing tag. So we're going to have a class name. We'll just call this text box or whatever, something like that. We can have a placeholder, which is going to be gray text that can just say something like type your review here. And you can see it'll show up as gray text. I kind of like that. We're also going to set our value property to our review, to our review state variable. So even though we already set, excuse me. Oh, we didn't do that yet, never mind. Okay, so what this is doing, I'm sorry. This is tracking each character live. So if I type in the letter A, for some reason it's not letting me type anything yet, but it will, I promise. But if I were to type something in here, then what would be happening is you would be targeting each character as it's being typed out one by one. So if I type in the letter W, it's going to be storing that value to our review state variable. If I type in the letter A, it's going to be updating from W to WA and storing that value inside of our review. It's basically just tracking each character live to help with our state updater function and make sure we get the correct value as it's happening, as it's being typed out. So the next thing that we're going to want to do inside, or for our next property, is an onChange event handler. So this is going to be doing something pretty similar. You may think it's doing the same thing, but it is similar, but it's not the exact same. I'll explain what I mean. So handle review change. So we're just going to be calling on this function directly. And we're going to be saying, okay, we're taking in the event. When the user types something into this text area, it's going to be storing that event as an object. It's going to be sending over this object into our function. We're going to be going inside of that object and targeting the target.value properties inside of that event object to store that value inside of that property into our review state variable. So I'll show you how you can do that. Set review. It's going to be e.target.value. E stands for event. And there we go. So not only are we targeting, we're storing the value for this text area letter by letter, but we're also storing the entire string itself as an object. So it's storing it. Value is going letter by letter. The onChange event handler is storing the entire thing, if that makes sense, as it's being typed out. All right, so there we go. Now we can start typing. It has something to do with the onChange handler. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so that's a good start with our text field or text area. Next thing what we're going to want to do is, and we'll stylize this in a bit. Let's just keep moving on for now. We're going to create a button that's going to go right below the text area. So we're going to just say create a button tag. Call this submit. I'm going to give this a event handler, an on-click event handler. This is going to be directly calling handle review submit. We're not passing in anything, so we can just call it directly inside of curly brackets. And so let's go into our handle review submits. This function is going to be a little bit complex. It's going to be utilizing our reviews updater functions and in state variables, it's going to be responsible for storing the information that we want inside of our empty array that we have here. And so let's just jump into it. So the first thing that we're going to want to do inside this function, is going to be doing an if statement. And we're going to say if review, so we're targeting our state variable here, dot trim. I'll explain what that is. Trim is a JavaScript function that takes white space away in certain conditions. It takes white space away from any string that's to the left or to the right of it, right? It doesn't remove the white space that's in between strings, only to the left and to the right. And it also prevents a string that contains a bunch of spaces or white space and removes all of that. If there is no string, but just white space, it'll remove that. What this is doing, it's basically not allowing the user to just type in a bunch of spaces and try and submit that as a review. It forces them to actually type out something, as well as removing unnecessary white space from to the left or to the right of strings, which no review should have. So that's why we're using the trim function. We're also going to use the AND operator. We want to make sure that they actually select a star rating. Okay. And now inside this if statement, we're going to actually create the objects for our new reviews. So we're going to say new reviews. This is going to be an object. The first property is going to be text, and this is just going to be containing the value of our review. We're going to do a comma, rating, star rating. All right, so what this is doing, the text property, we're storing the text property with the review state up with the state variable. So whatever value the user is typing into the text field is going to be stored inside of this property. The rating is just going to be whatever value the user selects. So if I click on 3, 3 gets stored inside of this rating property. That's what star rating is. Star rating is the value of 3. If I select 3, star rating becomes 3. So we have our new object here. Next thing that I want to do is I want to use our state updater function, set reviews. I'm going to do parentheses, square brackets. We're going to be doing a spread operator, so 3 dots, reviews, and then new reviews. So what this is doing is it's saying, okay, we're storing this new information that comes in the form of an object inside of our array here, as well as whatever was inside the reviews array previously, and spreading those values out to be stored inside of this new array. If we didn't have this spread operator, it would be an array inside of array, which is what we don't want. But basically what this is allowing us to do, it's allowing us to not only insert the new information that the user is inserting into this array up here as a result of interacting with this component, but it's also allowing for what was previously added into the array as well. That's how we're able to contain multiple reviews with multiple ratings and multiple texts, all that stuff. Okay, so that's what that is doing. And then after they click the submit button, we actually want to set the star rating to 0. As well as setting the review to an empty string, right? Because they just submitted their review. We want to clear and reset everything for the user. Okay. So now, the next part that we want to do, we're almost done with this. We just have to do, I think, one more section inside of our return statement and then some CSS styling, and that's it. Next thing we want to do is we want to actually display the reviews. If I click on the star rating and click on something or type something in, it's resetting, it's running that function properly, but no reviews being displayed, so we want to actually add that in. So I'm going to be creating a section here. We're going to just be calling this reviews. And then we're going to be creating, actually, let's say submitted reviews. I like that. Okay. We're going to be creating a div. And I'm going to be doing a class name. And we're going to call this reviews container. Inside the div, this is going to be pretty simple. We're going to be doing some JSX code. We're going to be saying reviews.map. So we're looping through our state array. We're going to be calling each review inside of the reviews array review. We'll be using a arrow function. We're going to be returning another span tag. Inside the span tag, I'm going to have a class name of review. And inside the span tag, we are going to have a couple of p tags. The first p tag is going to contain, so think about what we want to display here. We want to display the star rating and the review that the user left. So the first piece of information that we want to be displayed is the stars. So we'll say, do some JSX code. We'll say array, and this is going to be in curly brackets, array parentheses review.rating. I'm going to be filling, okay, so what this is saying is we're creating a new array, and then we're saying we want to store how many elements there are based off of what the user left as a rating. So if they select 5 stars, we want 5 stars to show up as a result inside of the review that they left, right? If they select 3 stars, we want 3 stars to show up on the review that's going to be at the bottom here. So that's why we are setting that there. And we're going to be filling that array with the star that we commented down below here. Oh, sorry, this has to be a string. And I think that would be good for that particular p tag. And then the next p tag is just going to be simply the review that the user has left inside of our object, if you remember. Forgot to mention. So each review, if you remember, is an object we created up here with 2 properties, text and rating. The text is what the user typed in. The rating is the star rating that they selected. And this is what this review, each element is an object called review. We're going to those very same properties and accessing them inside of these p tags to display the star and the text. So that should work. So if I just do a review here, 3 stars, let's refresh this. 5 stars, random text. It should appear. Okay, it didn't, but that's fine. I will see. Excuse me. I will see why. Okay, so I'm not getting an error. Sorry about that. It was a silly mistake. I had curly brackets instead of parentheses after our arrow function here. So let's go to this curly bracket and let's just replace that with a parenthesis. And let's go to the other curly bracket that's down here and replace that with a parenthesis. And there we go. Now they're showing up perfectly. Refresh, random text. Boom, the star shows up as well as the text. And yeah, so that is the functionality. Let's briefly go into the CSS and I can make it look a little bit better for you. And then you can just sort of go from there on your own. So we're going to do some basic styling here. We're going to target the entire container. So we're going to say review container. I'm going to turn this into a flex. And we don't want a row, we want a column, so we want to say flex direction column. And then we want to center this using align items, center. Okay. And then we want to make some of this look a little bit better, so we're gonna let's target the stars container and change the margins up a little bit. I'm going to say margin bottom. Let's do 0.5 REM. Space it out a little bit more. There we go. The text box is too small, so let's do that. We're going to say, let's get some margin bottom as well. We're going to say 0.7 REM. I like that. And we're going to make the height bigger. We'll say 5 REM. And the width is going to be wider, 20 REM. That looks good. And the star, we already did that. If there's anything else I should probably do, let's do the review container. Let's make that appear a little bit smaller, because if I submit something, yeah, okay. I think these are a little bit too close to each other, so let's just fix that real quick. Oh no, I'm sorry. These are too close to the submit button is what I meant to say. Reviews container. I have that as a class, right? Just want to make sure. Yes, I do. Okay. Margin top. 2 REM. There we go. Okay. So that should serve as like a baseline. You can mess around with it a little bit more, but just giving you some basic examples as to how to get started with it. But yeah, there you go. You can do a lot more, change the text, make the button look better, the text box look better, all that stuff. But didn't want to get too crazy with it. I just wanted to get you started with it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed it and hope you have a nice day.